Hi, my name is Kennedy Stomps. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, and as you can see from this giant pile here, my passion is comic books. So I guess I've always been kind of different. I've always stood out a little bit, but thankfully I've had a family that supported my nerdiness, and for that I'm really thankful.
Kennedy has always been a child with a strong sense of justice, and I think that plays into comic books and comic book storylines, plot lines.
Which way to the alien babes?
Hey Alex, so what are you most looking forward to at Comic-Con?
Seeing some of the movie previews and stuff.
I'm also excited. I'm a little nervous. It's going to be my first time going to Comic-Con, and it's going to be a little intimidating, I know, because I'm kind of young, and while I love comic books a lot, I know that there's people out there that are even more passionate, you know, if you can believe that. And I know that I might not feel like I fit in at first. But then I was thinking about it, and I realized that Comic-Con is probably going to be one of the few places where I do fit in, because it's somewhere where nerds can just be free and express themselves in any way that they find, you know, fitting. And I know that it's going to be a pretty crazy 4 days, but I'm really excited.
Well, Sergio Aragonis has always been one of my very, very favorite comic drawers and storytellers, for that matter, so I'm really looking forward to him. I may take off the helmet. No.
I am a big fan of the Josh Whedonverse, the Joshverse. I heart Josh Whedon, and I'm looking forward to seeing, you know, not only the comic books that are related to those series, Angels and Buffy's and all those, but also seeing some of the stars from movies and TV shows that I know that are science fiction, fantasy based that I like. So I'm excited about that. And, you know, it was interesting because about the time she heard about Comic-Con or realized that last year, I guess, she had heard about it and saw photos and really wished she could have been there. So about the same time, she started needing to develop an idea for her senior thesis, which is actually a fairly substantial, you know, 20-page paper that she needs to write. And she decided she was going to write it on comic books as literature or something along those lines as her thesis, so that she would need to go to Comic-Con to do research and talk to comic book artists and illustrators that are there for their kind of internal convention that's going on at the same time as Comic-Con. So yeah, this family vacation, you know, most girls, teenage girls, want to go to the beach or on a cruise or someplace like that, but no, we're going to Comic-Con.
I've always loved comic books. I've always looked at them as a kind of interesting art form and, you know, something very entertaining to read, but I didn't really look at them in a scholarly light until I took a class on understanding comic books as literature at a summer program. And it really caused me to see that there was this whole new perspective on something that I really enjoyed. And I found that, you know, my interest was becoming a passion. Actually, in the class, we did have textbooks. One was Understanding Comics by Scott McCloud. Another one was Art Spiegelman's Mouse. And we also studied the first issue of Alan Moore's Watchmen, so a bunch of classics. And I took that knowledge that I had gained at the class, and I took my passion and I put them together, and I came up with a senior thesis paper for my high school. I'm going to be studying Cold War era censorship and the effect of that on the comic book genre. And I think that that's a really interesting way for me to see how something that I, you know, really love and have always loved, you know, goes into a historical context, something scholarly. And of course, since I'm going to be studying comic books, what better place to do research than Comic-Con? So I think I would be a good subject for the Comic-Con documentary because I feel like I bring to the table the fourth aspect of Comic-Con. I know that there's a lot of people who are super fans, and, you know, super fans are a big deal at Comic-Con. They're definitely one of the parts of Comic-Con that come together to make it a great event. I'm not as interested in meeting celebrities as a lot of people, and celebrities are definitely another part of Comic-Con that's pretty well known and pretty important. And I'm not promoting anything. I'm not, you know, promoting my work. I'm not an artist, and I'm not a small, you know, comics press publisher, you know, promoting a work. I'm just interested in kind of a scholarly look at comics, and, you know, I do want to bring my family and I do want to experience the full Comic-Con experience, of course, but my focus is more on the educational aspect, which I think is a very important and often overlooked aspect of Comic-Con. So, I mean, comic studies is a pretty widely emerging field, and I definitely want to be a part of it. And I think that by following me in the documentary, there would be a look at this, you know, fourth level of Comic-Con, the education. especially because I hope to attend some parts of the Comic Arts Conference, which is a sub-conference at Comic-Con directed by Mr. Peter Coogan, who actually teaches at Washington University, which is in St. Louis, where I live, and I've gotten to talk to him a lot. He's been a great help on my research project, and I really think that, through his work at the conference and through my work on my paper, people in the documentary, people who watch the documentary could see that Comic-Con, while it's a great place for nerds to meet each other and to relate to each other, and while I really hope to experience that, and while it's a great place to be discovered or to discover new things or to meet celebrities and whatnot, I think it's also a place to learn things about, comic books and about popular culture, especially at the Comic Arts Conference. So one of the great things about being a comic book nerd is that there's a lot of people out there who share your passion, and so there's a lot of meeting spots for those folks, and one of those in St. Louis, Missouri, where I live, is Star Clipper Comics on Delmar Boulevard. Okay, so Spider-Man's probably my favorite superhero because he's pretty much just like your average everyday nerd, but then he gets bitten by something, by a spider, and it's just a completely random turn of events that he can't control, and he turns into a superhero. I think that's cool to me because he's definitely relatable. He's an average teenager just like me, and he was one of the first, he's in one of the first comics that I read. It was a Spider-Man comic, and it just told me that there was this whole world that if I just imagined could come true. I actually got into the North Road comic books when my dad brought me back signed copies. The author actually lives up in Washington where my dad lives, and he surprised me one day by sending me a package that had these in them, signed with little pictures drawn in them, and I was really surprised, but I've really grown to love them, and I think they're great stories, and they're an example of new graphic artists changing the way we see comic books. But as cool as Star Clipper is, it's got nothing on Comic-Con.